Hello and good day to all friends. This is Mitch Tabarasti from the Thales team, and today is November 13th, 2025. I'm here with you to analyze Bitcoin and the Thales Market Screener tool. Please note that these analyses are for educational and informational purposes only, and if you use them to take positions in the market, naturally, you are responsible for your own profits and losses. Regarding the brief report that was shared with you this morning, we discussed that we expected this move to end in a range around 104 to 105 approximately. We saw that it went up to about 104,100, and from there it started to correct downward. It's still in a downtrend following this downward movement, and we need to see whether this move to the downside will break the support level, meaning around 103,800 or not, and whether it will find support right here. The positive point is that, as you can see, here, during this upward move, the price attacked the moving average and was strongly rejected, but on this attempt, we managed to get above the moving average. The RSI, during this move, was able to break through the moving average and settle above it, which is a positive sign. If we look at the 1 hour chart, we can see that this short-term upward trend is still valid for now because the price is moving along its own upward trend line. We need to watch and see, and at the moment, the RSI here is actually... We can say that, to some extent, it's on the moving average in the 1 hour chart. Yeah, it's crossed a bit below the moving average, but we can still wait and see whether this is just a fake out and it comes back up, or if it's a complete breakdown to the downside. And if we take a look at the daily chart, pay close attention to the fact that if this daily candle can actually manage to close with a significantly bigger and more prominent green body, then following these two previous consecutive red bearish candles, it could possibly form It could show us a situation that is more positive compared to before. And the point about this corrective move is that the low it created is still higher than the previous lows. As for the weekly chart, as we discussed, if in the next 3 days we see the price go up, which is likely, meaning, as we just mentioned, if on the 4 hour chart we move up and attack the 105 resistance and then 108, then the remaining days of the week could pass with these targets in mind. Attacking the price levels of 105 and then subsequently 107 will, in all likelihood, cause the weekly candle again, and I want to emphasize that we're talking about probabilities here, not certainties, to close as a doji. At the end of this ongoing corrective trend, the appearance of this doji itself could potentially indicate a decrease in the prevailing downward pressure that has been observed. Alright, let's now switch over to the 4 hour chart and take a closer, more detailed look at our own charts, examining them thoroughly, and then move on to the market screener to see what it has in store for us, what we can expect, and what opportunities or risks might be present. And this is also a follow-up from the morning program we had, where we discussed similar patterns and market movements. So this analysis ties in with our earlier observations and provides continuity for our ongoing review. Let's go to the raw data, reset all the filters to their default settings, and check from the beginning of today up until now. Tomorrow's expiration is Friday, the weekend, so the expiration itself isn't important. Let's see, from the beginning of today until now, 5,208 Bitcoins have been traded in the form of 2,409 option contracts for tomorrow. In the raw database, the result is volatile, and it's interesting, just like I mentioned before. We're at the bottom of the volatility range. This is important. Look, right now, we're at the bottom of the volatility, and it's even gone below the previous bottom. You can see it's gone into loss, and this area shouldn't see further losses. The peak is at 100,700, so even if we want to go lower, according to this delta, at 100,500 or 100,700, we hit the bottom. So if this previous bottom comes back here, imagine it attacks this area and maybe forms a double bottom. But what we see ahead, look, there's a breakout here. The red curve is at 104. There's another breakout at 106. The profit peak is at 107 to 800, and the highest point of our movement is 110 to 900. So, in a way, for the weekend, we can say
We've seen the bottom of the curve and we might head upward. We can have this outlook if we look at it a bit more bullishly. And as you can see, even as we move forward, there aren't any significant changes. In the most recent trades, the bottom has moved up. The bottom of the recent trades is now 101,800. The bottom of the last hour is 101,800. So look, where is this?
The trend line, this is the bullish trend line on the weekly time frame. The profit peak is about 104, and the highest profit is 154,100. Attacking this could be tomorrow's plan. Now let's see what the process data tells us. The process data, the overall shape of the curve, because of this downward leg, looks bearish. But in my opinion, we should zoom in and look at it this way, because until tomorrow, there's not that much time for us to, say, see 88. I don't think so, unless there's a crazy crash in the market. But if we look at it this way, we still get the same takeaways from the raw database. So look, right now we're here with a price drop, delta increases, which means selling puts, meaning the bottom's here. Actually, even at 97 and 98, we've seen bottoms. In the process database though, let me check, because we have a lot of negative open interest as well. We need to look at open interest. Here too, you can see the negative open interest that we remove. When we filter them out, the bearish view gets eliminated. It's really interesting. The bearish leg went into loss, and here again, we've become volatile. The volatility floor is at 101,500, the peak profit is around 104, and the ceiling is 104,500. The same story from the other side applies here as well. If we move forward in the recent hour, it turns bullish. Take a look. Bullish leg. Here, a series of call purchases appears after 105. After 105, from 105 onward, we find a bullish leg up to 110, so keep this point in mind as well. Let's put these back and continue with the raw database. Alright. For tomorrow. And it's done. Now let's move on to drawing the indicator and the zones. Alright, as you can see, the intersection of the buyer and seller chart for tomorrow is high. The agreement is at 106,800, which is in profit, and the zone we have is the agreement zone. The lower agreement point is at 101,500, which is in loss, and the zone we have is a zone where there is disagreement. The agreement, or the average, is around the middle zone point of maximum profit and loss is roughly at 104. So, in fact, these curves are giving us more of a bullish outlook for tomorrow, which you could say is still possible, or maybe not. We have 2 candles now. We've been in a correction for 4 hours now. If we take a closer look at the trades, we can comment more on this. Let's go and update the indicator and the zones. Alright, you can see the indicator update. It's really interesting, guys. Look, in our morning analysis, our bottom was trending downward, but now you can see here that the bottom today compared to yesterday has moved upward. The trend was bullish, but the bottom was still going down, and actually we were seeing a bit more volatility. Now, the bottom has increased compared to the previous day, and the top has also moved up, so we can still maintain a bullish outlook. Look at this trend. From the point where the trend reversed, the bands are still moving upward in a bullish and increasing manner. Let's move on to updating the zones and see what's next. Alright, as you can see, the upper zone is the agreement zone, it's in profit, and it hasn't been touched yet. You can see it still hasn't been reached. While the lower zone, during the corrective move we had, has been mostly covered, used up so to speak. And now, my candle has almost moved up to the top of this lower zone. The middle zone hasn't been touched yet. Actually, let me add this lower part. Apparently, the middle zone hasn't been touched. It's from 103 to 104, which is correct. The maximum profit and loss zone for our lower zone is from 100,400 to 120,000, and the upper zone is from 106,400 to 107,400. So right now, we're around the lower area, so we can expect a target toward the upper zone. And so far, in our analyses and reviews, we've seen signs of a bullish outlook. Let's continue. Let's move on to delta and gamma to see what we have there. Delta and gamma, well, take a look. We have two gamma positions here, two negative gammas, which indicate selling contracts. Generally, these should be sales. Well, you can't say for sure, but these include both call and put sales. This gamma is probably more from put selling, and this gamma is likely from call selling. So we can consider this gamma at 103,700, gamma longmaker at 103,700. There's one below at 103,700 as well, and its position here is good. You can see the price hit it and bounced back. There's another gamma, which is actually a call sale at 109,900. You see at 110, the market maker has bought calls. So naturally, they've bought calls, and again, these create two resistance points. And below, you see the taker has bought puts at 97.4. So here, our market maker has a gamma short at 97.4, which is about here. Theoretically, in any case, it's a spot that could come into play, but for now, you can see our trend. The trend is forming consecutive higher lows, which is a positive sign. Unless the opposite is proven and a sharp move breaks this trend, for now, we're moving forward with this trend. Now, if we want to consider a downward move, the peak of the delta is here, 100,800 to 101,000. Here, you could say it's the end of put selling and the beginning of put buying. So this area around 100,000 is also very important. It's currently our valid support, from 100,000 to 101,000. If we go lower, we expect this area to hold. Because so far, it has performed well. It's been a support that has held up nicely. Now, as for the upside, we've already identified the steps, so let's move on. Let's look at the upcoming expirations for November 15th. Well, I've added November 15th, and it turned bearish. When we add November 15th, you can see that, again, this bearish leg comes into profit. Again, look at the 101 and 220 support levels here. If they break, we'll be heading toward 97 and 98. If I remove the Friday expiration, you can see that even November 15th on its own shows the possibility of movement in both directions. The interesting point is that right now we're filling the downside, meaning based on the contracts that came in today for Saturday, we're kind of using up the downside, so to speak. In other words, we've almost reached its target. Below 102 and 400 are in profit, which we've basically hit. And as for the upside, in fact, what's left is to see which direction it will ultimately move. For the 16th, there isn't much change. Yes, there are very few contracts for November 16th, and again, both sides are present, but the upside looks a bit better. You can also see from the delta that more trades have been made there. And for November 17th, again, not much. Nothing special's happening. For November 21st, which is next Friday, and is important again, there's still a chance for movement in both directions. Today's trades, though, if we look, the bullish side is a bit stronger. You can see the bullish slope is steeper. Here they become equal. Look, in the recent trades in the last hour, the bullish outlook for November 21st has gotten stronger. Though it's only about 500 Bitcoin, not much. The bullish view has become stronger, so that's that. Let's move on to the futures trades. Let's go to the expiries. Let's look at the details of the trades. So 5,308 Bitcoin in the form of 2,529 option contracts, of which 2,233 are buys. Out of this number, 665 are call buys and 1,565 are put buys. Puts are clearly dominating. Puts are completely in control. What we've seen in the last 7 hours or so, meaning basically 1, 2, 3, 4. So from about here, from this bottom, these contracts have come in and we're analyzing them now. So what has happened? You saw that the call buys were realized. They had priority. Look, there were fewer call buys, but the price moved toward fulfilling that side. You see, it hit 104, and then 104 again, 104.90, and 104.100. We went up, and now we're coming back down. The put buys, its target is 101,000. Buyers of puts are in profit below 101,000. That means we can come down to this floor, we can come down to this level, and now that's happening. Now we have to see how far it will go. So right now, we're in the process of puts being realized, put buying. And on the sell side, we have 3,075 Bitcoin sold, 1,425 Bitcoin call sells, 1,649 Bitcoin put sells, almost equal. Put sells are a bit higher, about 200 more. And now it's clear the call sellers have been realized. If we look now, you can see that the call sellers were targeting the 104 ceiling. Yes, 104 was reached, and now we're moving toward the put sellers. What's interesting is that we're now at the floor for put sellers. We're at the bottom for put sellers, and that's very important. That means the put and call sellers, who are important to us, because they always kind of determine the tops and bottoms for us, and they're usually the more professional ones, well, the seller at 102,600 saw the bottom, and we've just passed that. So it's not necessarily the case that we'll go down to 100,000 or 101,000, which is where the put buyers were looking. Right now, we're at the floor for the put sellers. Okay, that's that. We also checked the other expiries. Let's move on to the process database and see what's been processed. We also decided to make the open interest positive, so that the contracts that have been closed are removed. For tomorrow, there are 1,214 Bitcoin, which is still volatile, 10. Bitcoin, 15 Bitcoin, 12 Bitcoin. Okay, let's work with the 15 Bitcoin, which is 18 trades. Okay, let's see what we've got. It's bearish, meaning 15 Bitcoin and above is bearish. Of course, here in the delta, you can see there's actually a node, meaning downward, and you can see up to 100,000 put options have been sold. The bottom has been seen. On the upside, up to 105,000, resistance has been observed. If 105 breaks from above, we have call options being bought, meaning traders have bought calls, and the target goes up to 108 and 109. On the downside, if 100,000 breaks, you're looking at a target of 96 and even 95. So that's an interesting point. Let's see what we've got in the trades. Look here, these are the three strategies. Which, of course, yes, these are correctly activated. It's bearish, actually, 3 of them are put buys. One of them, of course, is a short put, which yeah, it's like there are 2 stages of expectation. You see, in one stage, they're expecting a drop, and in another stage, there's a stop station here, 102,000 to 101,000. We don't see any change in the red curve. From 101,000, it goes back into profit, meaning the trader sees 101,000 and 102,000 as key safety points. But, well, the view is we have a long put of 30 Bitcoin here and a short call of 120 Bitcoin here at 104, which we reviewed this morning and mentioned. This trade was entered into this morning, and it seems like its outlook has come true, even though the trade is still open and hasn't been closed yet. And again, here we have a 50 Bitcoin long put. And look, we also have 350 Bitcoin long calls. Of course, there's a 25 here as well. Yes, and 50 Bitcoin long calls for 106. These were entered today at 11:13, meaning right after that 200 Bitcoin trade, these were entered. Well, this itself is interesting. If we set this as 12 Bitcoin, since we had a lot of 12 Bitcoin trades too, look, 42 of them. We have a bunch here that are also 12 Bitcoin trades. And look, the strategy too, yes, since there are a lot of them, it can help us again. See, here it is. Oh, straddle. These are all, this one is strangle, these ones. Well, this one is a single position. These 2 are here as well. And these two, look, we have almost 175 Bitcoins. Now, ignore this part that went up. we have about 175 Bitcoins in short strangle positions, short strangle, which for tomorrow, its maximum profit is when the price fluctuates between 103 and 104, and its floor is 101,800, which we're getting close to. Again, this shows us that our floor for tomorrow will probably be a limited one, meaning it's unlikely we'll see a big drop, like going down to 95 or 96. On the other hand, the ceiling is 105,300. So let's take a look at the liquidation levels and then wrap things up. Look, in the past 24 hours, our liquidations above 104, almost up to 105,400 or 500, we have a concentration of liquidity, which is actually quite significant. On the downside, since the price is currently chosen the downward direction, it's collecting liquidity below, down to 100,000. You can see that there's still a considerable amount of open liquidity down to 100,000. There's a bit around 98,000, but it's not much, really not much. The main concentration of liquidity is between 100,000 and 102,000, so we have to see how far the price, which for now seems to be moving downward, will keep collecting this liquidity. If we look at the 48-hour charts, yes, the 48-hour chart is showing the same conditions, with even more intensity on the upper liquidity. That is, you can see the upper liquidity is getting stronger, becoming more prominent compared to the lower liquidity. Let's also take a quick look at the 3-day chart. On the 3-day chart, once again, you can clearly see that as you continue to further expand the time frame, the more the liquidity on the upper side is steadily gaining strength, while the liquidity on the lower side is gradually fading a bit. So, in my opinion, we can set up this scenario and reasonably expect that, up to this point, we will come down to approximately... We might even come down to around 101, 101,500, or 101,400 and expect support there. Based on what we're seeing, I think we should expect support and then aim for an attack on 105, initially around 105,300, something like that. Now, it could form a double bottom, or it could hold at the bottom of this bullish structure, but we're saying we might even dip a bit into this lower zone, down to around 101,200 or 101,300, and then, from there, probably head toward an attack on 105. As we discussed before, that would be roughly the midline of this channel. Look, I'm drawing the midline of this channel. Don't be too strict about the exact placement. If it can get above here and above 105, that's good. Otherwise, if it can't hold here, meaning if it can't hold at 100,800, then we'll see a drop, an attack on 99,900, and if it loses that, we'll head for 98,800. And here you can see 99,500 and 99,600, or even lower, are possible. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Thanks for your attention. I hope this has been helpful.